here so I can
So
bring up my spoilers.
Yeah. So I think the little chat box should be above that. But okay. So, yeah, all this. So, hello, this is Digger from the OSS. I am here actually with the now revised and now going to be going forward a more permanent theme for the podcast. So I am here with actually a special guest, Magic Man.
Hey, how are
Then there's the usual of Chaos Daybreak and Meepo.
Hey, how's it going?
Hello.
The most chill dude ever. Hey, how's it going then?
So the first thing we're going to do, I know we between Meepo and Daybreak last week, we talked about, kind of got into a little tangent about Evilise here. So I thought, you know what? Some of the spoilers that are released From Nightmares are from Final Fantasy XII, which is in the land of Evilise. So I thought, might as well talk about those cards' lore and if their cards' text matches their personality, matches their characteristics. Because as you know, Kayama-san, when designing cards, has to design them with lore in mind. So, let's see. Let's take up the first one, actually. What was it? I can't bring it up right now. At least I don't think so. Not without going through all this stuff. Let's see.
So,
let's go with Vane, actually.
Oh, you long-haired, glorious son of a...
Yeah, so, it shows the thing, but whatever. So there's Vane, Larson, all that stuff, so let's go back to the thing here, so... okay, so...
Well, we can talk about them later, but we also have like Golbez, Genova Synthesis, and a few others since the last podcast we did as well, Digger.
True, but I'm thinking just kind of focus on Evilise for now.
Sounds like a
we
plan.
can talk about previous iterations of their cards and see if it matches what they have had previously, right?
Sounds good.
So then we'll just... Actually, I'll just... So, let's go with the Vane so far. So I have his personality up here automatic, or previously. So, has this whatever quotes. So third son of the Emperor Gramus. So he's a candidate for the next emperor. Knowledge of military affairs and has the ability to sway people's hearts and minds via manipulation. So he's basically a politician through and through, with basically a hint of not very corrupt, but very. This is kind of like an outreach a little bit, but he's kind of like almost like a charismatic dictator in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah,
that's a very good way to put it.
I was going to go. There's other ones, but it's this charismatic dictator that works perfectly. Based off the lore of Evilise for Final Fantasy XII, since it's technically the prequel for all the other Evilise games. If you know the lore without going to spoilers of the video game, 12 is very nuanced.
Wait, did we just do a spoiler warning for Final Fantasy XII?
Just in case.
So all honesty, I am still doing my playthrough of FF12. So spoilers would be, greatly endgame spoilers. Let me see.
Okay, all right. So you're the one. Okay, you're the one. All
So
right.
try to be as generic, but also still get to the core of the character's personality.
Yeah.
So, basically, Vane, as it says here, he never shows his deepest feelings and is ruthless in using any of means to achieve his goal. Blah blah blah. So he doesn't show his full hands up. He doesn't show his full hand. Like, he doesn't just go, oh, by the way, here's everything I'm just going to do. Blah blah blah. I'm transparent. No. 12, as in a nutshell, is very gray area, nuanced politics.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like, if you're even basically. Okay.
Like on the verge of, if you're not into political intrigue even just a little bit, 12 can actually be a slog and a half to play.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why I enjoyed the game, but maybe that's why the storyline itself just didn't jump out at me as other Final Fantasies. Because I usually don't follow or watch much stuff that has a strong political theme to it.
Yes. I mean, if you're able to get it, you can get it. If not, 12, and even tactics a little bit. It's very... You won't get a lot of nuance or the details behind the scenes unless unless you know the gray area that they're always in, right? So...
Yep.
So, other than that, I would have to say, based off all your previous knowledge on Vayne and how he acts, would you say his current card spoiled and his previous iterations would match, like, the card's text? Like, would that match his personality that you would think?
I always thought they all did, except the what was it? The 8-drop lightning forward one. That one always seemed a little weird to me, right? It was a buff on one side and a debuff on the other. And while that kind of, military experience that Vayne had, and not really getting directly involved or brutal or violent himself, as far as on the battlefield, that one always seemed kind of, all right. The rest of them, the other 4, obviously 3 in ice, and then, 1 fire ice, I think it is?
Like a water one.
Yep.
Yep. No, that's probably...
3 ice and 1 ice fire and a lightning.
Yeah. The lightning one I wasn't too keen on as far as the thematics go. The other ones really fit, right? Like the pay 1 per... giving the other forwards the text of, if you don't pay 1, you break. I'm not breaking you. You're going to break you. Freezing things down or dulling the stronger ones. Getting the obstacles or the challenges just out of the way. Not killing you, not being violent, just getting you out of the way so I can swing around you. Even the fire ice one, with the buffs or when he attacks, discard. I'm just going to take your resources. I'm not going to kill you. Not going to go after you. Not going to get violent. Just going to take your resources. And then the other lightning one, or the other ice one, search Larsa, right? Which is the brother that Vayne actually had a decent relationship with and liked. And so that they always thematically kind of made sense to me, except that lightning one, which just kind of seemed a little generic for my tastes, given the character.
Yeah, I based off, obviously it's whatever form he decides to take based off the art. It, based off its characteristics, it kind of, like you said, kind of makes sense, but I think there should have been a little bit more fleshed out on that card just to kind of get his personality in there, but
it is nice to see him in wind.
Yeah,
that's
true.
Everything's been ice with the exception of 1 multi-element and 1 lightning, so it is nice to see him in wind, I think. And he does have that when he enters the effect or at the beginning of your main phase, which has kind of been... for the most part, a staple, a repetitive oppression effect on Vayne. Each of your turns, choose a card removed from the game with warp counter on it. You may remove 1 warp counter from it. When one's removed, draw a card. This effect will obviously only happen once per turn. Well, I don't think it needed that, right? It's at the beginning of your main phase 1.
Oh.
Yeah.
No,
you only get 1 of those.
No, the lock into once per turn.
On the draw. Yeah, you're right.
On the draw, on the draw.
Yeah, on the draw.
Warp counters would go on start of turn, and then his effect would give you a second draw potentially. So.
Yeah, you're right. My bad.
Still,
that's all right.
That's very almost par for I would say that's kind of equivalent to him with the judges. When you say kind of accelerates or kind of sends them into the battlefield when they're needed, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's all about that grab your stronger stuff, get it out earlier, or force the opponents out earlier because you have an answer to them rather than waiting until it's time. Those both, to me, absolutely fit thematically.
Yeah, that's very. I can agree with that. So I think that's all there is for Vayne that we've talked about.
It just sounds like sneaky government man doing sneaky government things right here. I mean, I have to say it before we get away from him, but giving you the free advantage, you kind of cheat some of the mechanics that are in session right now. The indiscriminate taxes,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a thing. Actually, it's kind of...
It's pretty fitting.
It's kind of interesting because one of the key cards in an old deck that I made was called Pay the Bank, and it had Vayne as a prominent card in there. So it's kind of interesting on that one. How about so in the Land of Evil East, as we mentioned, is very political, very gray. So a lot of the cards I see kind of fit their characteristics in that world. So let's talk about probably Larsa, the little brother of Vayne, basically. And it's, I say little brother because everyone goes, "Oh, that's a girl."
No.
Well, that's a dude.
Holy dude.
Very pretty dude.
Pretty much, it's a pretty boy character for all intents and purposes.
Final Fantasy 12 had a lot of those pretty boy characters.
It's kind of like the era where like pretty boys were really big and like
Yeah, like
they all look like they're from a boy band.
Yeah, a lot of androgynous looking guys and stuff.
Yeah, because I think this is around when did 12 come out?
It was before the PS3 time.
It was like PS2 era. That was like Pirates of the Caribbean, right?
Yeah, like end of PS2 era into PS3.
Yeah, because like back then, I know Johnny Depp and his like role as Jack Sparrow and like Orlando Bloom. Pirates of the Caribbean was really popular in like Japan and like other places, for the aesthetic that they had.
Yeah.
Where masculinity wasn't about like whatever it was in like the early 90s or whatever. It wasn't Baywatch anymore. It was, look, he's hot, but he's also feminine.
Yeah, the game came out in 2006.
There we go. Thank you.
That makes sense. I mean,
I was at the midnight release for it.
Oh,
Man,
wow.
remember midnight releases? I was outside in line at a GameStop to pick up my pre-ordered copy of Final Fantasy 12 Steelbook edition, baby.
I used to have that too, where I had like the little DVD of like, hey, here's Versus 13, by the way. It's like, okay. So let's see. Let's talk about the spoiled Larsa in terms of his lore. Which I'm happy that they put the job. I mean, they put it there anyways, but they kind of put it more that like it's more upfront with the text. Firstborn son of the Emperor, because a lot of people are like, oh, it's a girl. You read the job. What? Oh, so a little bit more prominent. That's a good thing. As a backup, enters the field. You may discard one card. Use to search for a category. 12 forward, and add to your hand, and then one water tap him. Put Larsa into the breakstone. Choose from 4 during his turn. Next damage dealt to it is reduced by 2,000 instead. So that's almost pretty well on point because he's, as much as he is the 1 or 2 times that he's a like a random party member to join for like 1 or 2 mixed quests, but otherwise he's just kind of there supporting the cast or otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
Well, doesn't he also go to the main characters and basically say, hey guys, I do need your help. Help me, stop my brother?
Pretty much, but it's just like, it's one of those, he's kind of like Vayne in a way where he gets involved, but not really. Like, he's not
sneaky background things.
Yeah. Hence
I'm learning very quickly as I play through the game. It's like a lot of the characters have obviously some like ulterior motives in their actions for the most part. They don't fully disclose things, especially between Vayne and Larsa. Vayne is a little more obvious because he's kind of drawn out to be, I guess you could say, like the antagonist of the game. But with Larsa, when he approaches you, there's obviously ill intent when he kind of gives you an alias and then kind of only figure things out the more you progress, so to speak.
Yeah. So, apart from that, what about his other cards that has been released? Any thoughts on those?
I actually like this one the most. I think it's a, particularly if you're running like a Cat 12 or a Sky Pirates, or arguably though it doesn't quite fit in a Sky Pirates build because you're probably giving up a better backup slot for it. But I could see maybe teching it in if you were going to do some Cat 12 cute tech in a Sky Pirates. But I think it has an interesting home there. We'd have to see. But it's like a more flexible Meath, right? It doesn't matter what you discard. You just discard anything.
Yeah, but
yes, it's limited to only Cat 12 forwards.
Oh.
But if you're going to play this Larsa, that's not going to be a problem. You're not running out of Cat 12 forwards if you're running this Larsa, and there's no cost limitation on what you can grab. So to me, I look at it as, yes, it's limited to Cat 12. Yes, that means there's a special deck you're going to use it in, whether it be Sky Pirates or a specific Cat 12 / whatever build. But you already knew that going into it, so the limitations on this don't matter to you. It's a 2-drop, discard anything you want to go get something better at any given point. Oh, and by the way, we have this little reduce thing that we can do later. I like toolbox stuff like that. That definitely fits with Larsa's character. Most of the Larsas, I think, kind of fit with the character. The original backup that negated damage. God, that's got to be one of the ruling questions I see all the time. Negate. That's a cure spell, by the way. Think of it that way. It's not going to stop incoming damage. It removes damage that has already been done and resolved on your forward. Yeah. That certainly fits with Larsa. The other one that lets you draw on entry and draw when it leaves doesn't see a lot of play because that's all it does, and it costs 6. So essentially, it's a quasi 2-drop backup, but there's better ways to draw in water. That's why you don't see that Larsa. I think it was a starter card back in the day.
Yep.
The one that got away from me a little bit was I didn't thematically, and maybe one of you do, and you'll sway me here. I didn't thematically see, while I thought the play space was interesting, and it was the first time we had that play space being messed with in FFTCG, was the Larsa that messed with your damage zone.
Yeah.
That let you pull back a card from there and replace it with something from your hand. Maybe you can sway me, but I was like, that's very cool. I like the play space. I like where you're thinking about messing with the damage zone here, but I don't really feel Larsa when I see that one.
Meepo, Daybreak, any thoughts on that one?
So yeah, I kind of agree with you there. Like, it's a cool effect and ability, but I do also agree. Like, it's not really very Larsa to me.
I'm grasping at straws here with what I'm going to say. Right, I'm going to very loosely and desperately grasp at straws to try and justify this. When I say maybe it's because, again,
it does have the buff, I guess.
Ulterior motives and kind of like sneaky things is how I'm looking at it. So like, all the other Larsas technically have some sort of way, shape, and or form to give you cards in your hand and search something out. And this one kind of just reaches into a new territory and says, here, you can take something from your damage. Again, with that kind of get a card, but it's not a conventional mean of getting a card. Because I think this Larsa is like the only one in the game that I know of as well that will let you fiddle with the damage zone.
Yeah, I mean, we have Axstar, you can't mess with it, but it re-triggers from it. Yeah, as far as like actually touching those cards and doing something with them,
So that's how I'm going to kind of put it. Like, maybe it's just like their way of kind of embodying, doing some sort of sneaky behind-the-scenes government manipulation kind of thing.
Yeah, I get that.
But
like,
okay, so then counterpoint, how sneaky is it? Your opponent sees what you took and sees what you gave up for it.
I mean, if you think about it again, if we're looking at it from that point of view, if you were, let's say, I'm going to very loosely say this just for the sake of the theme, if you were Vayne and you were overlooking your realm or your kingdom, you'd probably notice something suspicious going on anyway, right?
All right.
Did I sell you on that? I hope I did.
You might have. You're definitely getting me there. It does have the buff, too, and that is like a Larsa staple, right? Either negating damage, reducing damage, or buffing. So that
is true.
Yeah, even the one from Opus 2, right? That did that. They don't receive damage. They had the Minwu effect on them.
Now,
right?
On the topic of this Larsa itself, like the new one from Opus 19, I'm a little concerned about their whole self-break cost / self-break effect, because like I was looking at it earlier, discussing with Digger, and basically Opus 10 Cecil has a similar cover effect.
Yeah.
But it's cheaper costed. Like Opus 10 Cecil breaks itself. It blanket protects all your forwards by 2,000 instead of just Larsa's 1 cost plus self and then 1 instance reducing by 2,000.
So here's my counterpoint. Let me try and sway you this way.
I don't think I need to be swayed. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm just saying, like, just looking at it a card perspective, I'm like, okay, I understand why there has to be utility because, again, being able to search Cat 12 is insanely powerful. I've heard horror stories about like Fran from Opus 18.
Yes.
So I don't think you need to sway me, but if you'd like to say it still, I'll give you the space to.
Well, so you don't like the fact that Larsa sacks itself, or you just think that's too expensive, or
No, I think
it's too expensive for only saving one forward a couple damage?
Yeah. Basically, like compared to a card that's already come out, like
Right.
I'm looking at it in I guess a bit of a power creep kind of way. We're doing what another card does, but worse.
I don't disagree with you there. I would disagree, though, that I think it needed this. Because I think they want it to have a potential slot in the Cat 12 deck right now, which, like it or not, is basically Sky Pirates, or, I mean, if you want to get crazy and go Headhunters, maybe. But it's going to be Sky Pirates. But it doesn't have a home in Sky Pirates right now if it can't get rid of itself. And so, yeah, the effect might be underwhelming, but this allows you to turn one, go get Fran, go get Balthier, go get whatever piece you're missing, and then when you do get that, the Philo or the whatever actual forward you want on there, combat trick Larsa, get it out of there, get the backup that you want there, and like it or not, 2,000 on one forward does change combat if you threaten the ability to use it anytime. So I agree with you, the effect's underwhelming. Okay. But I think it kind of had to be underwhelming because this isn't a backup you want necessarily being sticky in a deck like Sky Pirates.
Fair. Okay.
Just my thought. I don't know.
Yeah, no. That I don't want to bring one single card debate to go on like eternally. So I'm just gonna accept it. But again, if I'm just gonna bring up one last point, and then we can move on from this. But to my understanding, Sky Pirates is don't target them.
Yeah.
Right. So again, it seems a little. I guess it makes more sense that way, but it seems a little strange to me where they're giving you like a damage reduction ability in a deck where you're already not trying to like ping and like target them because they're already getting benefits out of it. So like I guess it would be one of those cases where you can't even activate this with that. Never mind.
Yeah, and I do agree with. I think we're both on the same page. If we were running a Sky Pirates deck, this probably isn't in it. It just doesn't make the cut.
It's probably just one of those cards where it's like you really are going all in on like Turbo Fran combos or something crazy. That being said, though, in my Knights deck, if I was doing 12 base Knights, which I've been thinking of, well, Knights and Princesses, plus is not bad. I would love a way to search, Ash, multiple Ashes, but.
So, from there, let's see. So we did Bane, we did Larsa. That's all it was for 12. That was spoiled. So
no, we have an Ash.
No.
This morning we got an Ash.
I mentioned our Star Girl just now too. Come on.
Yeah.
Sorry. So, this one is 2 cost EX, backup. Enters the field, shoots one forward, activate it. At the beginning of the attack, during each of your turns, each player's turn, I will be nuts. You may return your to your own stance. Like that. Oh boy. But
you say it's nuts, but that's Yu-Gi-Oh. There's a Yu-Gi-Oh deck that actually does that. So.
Oh no. So I'm a little, in terms of theme of her lore, I'm a little, I guess, perplexed. Because there's so many different Ashes that do a lot of different things, and I know in the game she's very, well, the redone Zodiac of Age or whatever, where it's not just one path on the license system and then you're kind of stuck. So thank God. Basically, she does a lot of different things for different cards. I know she's almost versatile in almost anything in the lore or in the game or otherwise, but for whatever reason she's seen as like a ruined knight, I think that's the right name for it, but ruined knight with a giant sword and every other concept that doesn't involve, hey, I'm going to change her to an archer for random crap and giggles, right? So I'm basing it off like the Dissidia, the Dissidia Opera Omnia, right? Where she has just the sword as her weapon, right?
I mean, my interpretation of Ashe from the games is like she's given a very good niche where she's either, she's technically paladin, because like her default kit loadout has swords and shields too, I think, and then she has like really proficient white magic stats or really good white magic related stats. So I think she'd go along the path of being like knight, white mage / paladin along with them.
Which can make sense. My only thing is, like I said, it's a lot of the other times she's seen with a great sword rather than sword and shield, right?
Knights do get great swords further down the job tree near the end.
No, that's true. That's true.
But that's a bit of a side thing as well. I think it might be just because like maybe I don't know. I'm not gonna claim to know.
I guess it's something along the. I guess they're trying to lore-wise kind of use what in the video game and lore with the license little tree that you can kind of pick which direction you want to go. Henceforth, Ashe is very versatile in what she can do on the card with also what she can do in the video game, right?
Yeah.
Well,
she's also one of those characters that, like, I think most of her cards have kind of been all over the board, right? And you run into this where once you start getting to like 5, 6, 7 different versions of specifically named characters, they can't all be thematic, right? they can't all be, or they become boring. Every Ashe we get is going to activate something or draw something. Like you run into God, look at Lightning at this point. Half of her cards aren't even thematic anymore because they just want to keep printing her. I like this Ashe. Unfortunately, I just think it doesn't have too much of a home because of how good the most recent Ashe before it was.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just me. There is some cute stuff that you will be able to do with this that maybe you aren't running the 6-drop Ashe to do. Probably in a Water X deck or maybe even a Water XX deck. But I still think like your mono waters, your predominantly water / one other elements, they're still probably going to use the 6-drop Ashe, right?
I think so, yeah.
I would think you're not wrong, but I also see a lot of potential in the card because I don't want to just focus.
Oh, I agree.
Not just focusing on like what is it, BDIF, best deck in format, or like the most optimal way of playing it. Because she does have that neat little secondary line of text on her that could let you run both for whatever purpose you may need. Just being able to bounce her at the beginning of the battle phase each turn to hand.
Yeah, while you have Bismarck on field, that's pretty buff.
Bismarck, Leviathan, like again.
Let me just go ahead and go to combat, take this back up, draw a card, and then I'll decide what I want to do.
Yeah, I mean, when you're in a winning position in this game, don't you just go straight to combat most of the time and then
right, exactly.
pick it up in phase 2, right? So that's what I'm saying, like in a winning position. But even just having like the X burst, her EX burst is something really useful. Being able to just pick something and activate it coming out of nowhere. Again, I don't think there's many things that do that on a burst. Again, my knowledge of the card pool is not as well as some people's, so I'm going to apologize if I'm wrong. But I think it's a really neat, very useful card, even in mono water. She gets herself off the field, so if you do need to play 6-drop or you need to clear up something, she's there. And as we know, forwards can also leave the field too, so like you're never going to be, I guess you'd say, in a bad spot when you run both of them because they kind of support each other in a specific way. Yeah,
no, you're right there. And that second ability by itself is just nutty. I mean, it's just absolutely nutty. It's going to lead to some goofy loops. We're going to see some weird loops, and I actually think that this one Digger fits more thematically with Ashe than some of the previous ones because of that second ability being very not going after power, being very almost the ultimate good, right? The ultimate virtuous character, sacrifice the self for the team. Like I think that fits thematically perfectly, and it's going to be nutty. I mean, Chris Matisky's going to abuse the shit out of this, I'm sure, in some way. Right, like he's gonna find some loop where it just keeps going and going and going into ultimate activation mode. So anything that activates gets scary when Chris Matisky's messing with Tilica, right? Like anything that activates. This has to be a forward, granted, but it still gets a little spooky sometimes.
Yeah. So I can go on for, I don't know, several more minutes because Ash is like my FF waifu now.
Oh,
like I've been
all
playing
right.
12 and I'm learning and I'm like, okay, I really like her a lot. Like she's now my waifu. I'm going to admit that, but thematically and everything, I think it agreed. Like it kind of checks because like if I'm looking at the previous iterations of her, and she's always had some sort of like kind of modular thing, and like one of her things is always either kind of being able to, I guess you could say, dodge or like reactivate, like having some sort of like commanding presence, princess power, so to speak. So, thematically, I think it really works. Again, interpreting it as maybe like related to the game, her ability to actually like just jump off the field is like when she goes missing multiple times at the beginning of the game.
That's true.
That makes sense, yeah.
Right? So like I take that and I compare and I contrast like Ash Opus 19 versus Opus 18, where she's in her queen job, right? Her queen, she's literally a presence on the board with power to do X thing now, versus her as a princess trying to remain hidden and do the game. What happens in 12?
Yeah, no, that's a very fair point on that one, because I think I remember playing the original game. I didn't play the Zodiac Age, but but I played the original game, and I do remember years ago that it's like, hey, Ash is missing. Okay, randomly pop in the beginning. It's like, oh, that is the princess. Okay, then blah blah blah, etc. and so forth. So yeah, that makes sense. It's a fair point. That's a really good point there, Daybreak. So we've gone through the spoilers of that.
Before we move on really quickly, if that's okay, Meepo, do you have anything to say about Ash?
Well, looking at every single card that came out of her, a lot of it activates her, either herself or she's activating somebody else.
Yeah.
I find that thematic because the thing about Ash, and it's not too spoilery because I think it literally happens at the beginning of the game, her kingdom falls to pieces, gets taken over, and she's on the run. So she's still...
That's the story of the whole game.
Yeah, she's very like restore my family name.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Thing.
So she has to be strong. She has to be determined and persistent in order to reclaim her name. So by these effects activating herself or other people, to me that seems very thematic to Ash and what she's going through in regards to the story of the game.
Yeah, no, that's actually wow. But to be honest, I didn't actually think about that myself, but.
I didn't realize it after until I seen like every single card in front of me. I was like, wait a minute, there's a trend here.
Yeah, a large number of them do, because like the Opus 5 starter deck Ash lets you pop up a Sky Pirate, so in support of the cast and friends, Vaughn and the Sky Pirates. This one lets you do anything. Opus 10 Ash modular, pick one of 3. Also gives you the activate. Enter battle. The only one that I think is an outlier is like one of the other blue ones where she just gains power when targeted, and the green one where she's just immune.
Yeah.
The green one though.
Yeah.
I guess it's just a buff, it's immunity and a draw.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Then I actually I thought thematically way back when. And I obviously didn't play yet in Opus 2 that Ash, but I always thought thematically it was, even though you're just like, yay, Ash gains 3k, right? Like that's all she does. But Rassler protects the shit out of her. Like, I'm sorry, I swore. Oh man, I'm sorry. But like at the time, that was like, look at how thematic that is, right?
Yeah,
Ash and Rassler basically makes Ash. Basically makes Ash indestructible, man. She's gonna gain power anytime she's chosen by a summoner ability, and Rassler doesn't let her break. Like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. So apart from that, we touched base a little bit on the theme of Evilise at that point. So I guess throughout the game and what you guys have obviously discussed about the characters, what do you think, let's just say title format where it's just all one game and whatnot, would you say that these cards or other iterations would thematically work. I guess weird way of putting it, thematically work in the deck that they're in. Like I don't know, Ash and like whatever Vaughn has to be in, or something with Balthier. Like, would you say that's a proper fit based on her lore or otherwise, or even some of the other characters?
So first off, we brought Vaughn into it, and he has how many iterations with how many different abilities? Everyone can probably find a home with him.
He's got more backstory in the TCG than he does in the game.
Yeah. Again, another point that I was bringing up with Digger earlier before the podcast started was the whole concept of when they were writing FF12, though, where initially the story pitch was supposed to be a story focus where you were Bosch and Ash, but not Vaughn and Pinello. And they inserted the two of them later in your end of development to give you kind of like a more third-person self-insert kind of thing to go off of. Right. That being said, and being on the topic of 12 and multiple jobs being available in the Zodiac Age to all the characters, it kind of makes more sense there. But in a vacuum, I think if you were building category blue-green Sky Pirates, Ash is always a welcome addition, no matter which variation she is, along with Vaughn and most Pinellos, because one of them is, oddly enough, an FFTA2 character, I think.
Oh yeah, there was that Game Boy Advance.
12, same with a Balthier, actually. There's an FFT Balthier that works with Ovelia.
So nutty sometimes. It's like, oh, I totally forgot that character was in that.
Some of these things.
Yeah, no. I've also noticed that. So, probably if there hasn't been really a 14 iteration of like the whatever of the characters, but since they're going all the way back to like they went to Ramza 1,000 years back, whoever, won't go too much into Stormblood if anyone hasn't really gotten that far. But let's just say,
Stormblood.
let's just say there's a part in Stormblood where they mention the kind of like a connecting backstory with 14 and tactics and references to 12. Let's just say that.
Yeah. So, okay. Where are we going with this, Digger?
So
give me some enlightenment. Where are we going with this?
So, depending, because 12 is the prequel to Tactics, and Tactics is kind of the prequel depending on how they connect 14 with Tactics.
Okay. So we are talking about the universe theory right now.
Yeah. So kind of go on to the world part of it. So basically, like 12 with all like the vein and everything, all very gray area, is very political, gray point. If you don't, we've already discussed it, but if you don't know how to depict that, then you're kind of lost. Tactics is kind of, I don't know if we'll get Tactics cards in this set. Might be cool if we do. Probably touch on that later on if we do get some after the set release. So based on the theme of Evilies, the Tactics is kind of following the same type of formula pre-12, go figure, of 12's like warring nations, political here, there, everywhere. So like it's kind of the same aspect as 12 that we decided, where you don't get it, or if you do, cool. But I'm just trying to think of how it's up. The main point is that I'm trying to figure out how the lore of Evilies, with all the cards and all the characters and whatnot from those games, kind of is still thematically appropriate or thematically accurate. If that makes sense.
So just going off the top of my head and going on a wild tangent here, I think the best way to do it would be to take each card, look at it from said category, and be like, how did this fit in like the actual story lore, and like kind of pick at it like we've been doing with each of these.
Yeah.
Right. Like, let me take backup Ramza from the lightning deck for example. Right. Your main character is Ramza. You're supposed to recruit members for your team. Yada yada yada. That Ramza is a backup that lets you flip 3. You take a backup, a forward, and a summon, which are all kind of integral things that you pick up in the game. That's kind of thematically how it relates to Ramza. You're talking about Delita. Most iterations of Delita, correct me if I'm wrong on my lore here, because I haven't played Tactics completely or in a long time, he kind of has that kind of backstabby thing going on where whenever he comes into the board, you have to sack a unit or, target a unit and then, or a forward or a character. And, you got to pay off to have him enter the field because if I'm not wrong again, the relationship was like he kind of backstabbed Ramza and took position over him. Right.
Well, they had a huge disagreement over some events that happened earlier in the game. So he's like, Ramza, I can no longer ally myself with you. I'm taking my own path and making my own decisions to get the right answers and stuff.
Thank you for the clarification. Again, I'm not good with that lore. I'm not good with that lore. I will not pretend to be good at it. But just saying, based on stuff like that, like if you look at it card by card or something thematically that way, like I'm seeing some of the more of the connections going on with like the lore of it actually.
Plus, we have a tremendous amount in FFTA, TA2, TA Advance, and of standard units, right? Yes. That is like the common theme, not just in the TA series, but then you also kind of see that in Final Fantasy 12 with assistance from kind of generic characters here and there, where it's the world is being made up of regular people that then become something else, later in this greater strife. Which, if you search standard units, there's an overwhelming number in TA, TA2.
I think like a good third of the standard units are like tactics units, and then like another third are like FF14. Right. The last one is like all the other.
And then the rest are all samurais. Then the rest they're just every single one of them is a samurai.
Oh no, I lied. The other third of the generic units is probably going to be like FF5.
FF5 definitely.
It's definitely
with a little bit of Final Fantasy 3.
Yeah.
Well, I think it was stated that in Final Fantasy 3, the standard units are all Warrior of Light because they could be everything.
Yeah, because 3 and 5 both heavily worked off of the job system.
Exactly.
They were the two most dominant job system games. So 3, if we're going by the original non-DS 2000 remake, they were just known as Warriors of Light. There was no actual character tied to them. They created the personas of Lunith, Refia,
and all of them. Yeah, that was later.
When they did the DS remake to try and get people to follow better with the story.
And Final Fantasy Tactics also brought back the job system, so that's why all 3 of those games are really used for just standard units in the card game.
Yeah, actually.
They're disrespecting 1 so bad, I swear. I swear they're disrespecting 1 so bad.
Yeah.
What was it like?
Literally, my name is Red Mage if you don't do anything. Come on, show me some love.
You know what? Actually, speaking of like tactics, tactics is more advanced and advanced too. I don't think they brought this card out, the Juggler. Because that was like very much of a interesting class. I'm going, wait, where's the Juggler? I thought, really? We don't have a Juggler card? Okay.
There is a lot of things that need cards in this game that are still not getting cards. And we say this every podcast. Like every time someone's gonna say it, I will be the one to start it.
I'm sorry, that's gonna have to wait. We're doing more lightnings and more clouds.
And more Zidanes as well.
But
move on.
Hey, although we can't have it both ways, right? Like we either complain that you're reprinting more or making more different clouds or whatever, but then we turn around and say, why don't you promote the game when Final Fantasy VII X Remake 7 down the road comes out? Like you gotta understand, right? They're gonna try to do that type of stuff, but there's a lot. I will say that I have a spoiler that will be going Monday.
Ooh.
And it is a card name that does not exist in the game right now.
That's neat.
I wish we could have spoilers right now.
Ooh, that's exciting.
I mean,
so yeah, it does not exist in the game at all. Actually, I don't even know if its job does. I think there might be one other. I think there might. be.
Do we have a hint? Do we have like a category teaser or something?
I
think you get in trouble, but I'm desperately, I'm insanely curious now.
So I am under no embargo for it. So.
Yeah, I kind of figured. It's like, all basically plug-in. I will be releasing said thing
There is-
soon.
No, I'm not under embargo, so I can give you a hint.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
It is a character. Its name never exists in FFTCG yet. This will be the first time its character name has come in. And its job is only used on one other Final Fantasy TCG card right now, not counting anything else that may be in Opus 19, obviously.
That's like I have to go through the entire library. Ooh.
that's
Yeah.
something to think about. Okay, let's not turn this stream into let's guess what the card is now.
2 hours later.
This is like still like typing away at the keyboard. Oh god.
It is one of those things, though, to be fair, I don't want to cause too much hype for it. It's like a rare, but it is also one of those ones that you're like, I probably never would have guessed that name.
Okay,
It's
like a rare, but I think that Ash was a rare.
That's true. That's true.
That, right?
Yeah, it's not like a Cloud or an Ash or a Lightning, a main character staple,
before, so.
but the name itself has never been used before. Its job has been used once.
Huh. But I mean, even as like previous cards have gone, like rares, even commons are like, yeah, put in the right deck. We're just going waffle stop and slap face.
I really wanted the card to be category 12, knowing what we were going to be talking about today, and I was like, you son of a B, you're not category.
No.
You're not category 12.
What category is it?
I can't do that. All right, I'll give it to you. It's
I know.
Cat 13. Cat 13.
Oh,
I am insanely less interested now. All right, let's move on.
okay. So
you did not. To be honest, you did not have to give me the category though.
No, it's fine. It's fine. You're not going to guess it. You're not going to guess
want you to
it.
get in trouble.
I'm going to be honest. I'm stumped. I don't know what it is.
You're not going to guess it. Like, even a 13 master wouldn't be like, I bet I... No, you don't know what it is. Shush.
Oh, that's SmackDown. Okay.
Other than thematically, I would have to say, well, if we're going on like weird speculations, because even though 14 has that weird connection, quote unquote.
Oh yeah, so I have to ask that after. When we get a free moment, I will ask how you feel about that.
True enough. It's like, but going into like the FFTA, FFTA2, which a lot of people really like. I know I myself, and Nintendo sneakily put that in the Wii U eShop digital, by the way, for FFTA, without announcing it before the market just crashed. Like, not the market, but like they just shut down the online store. I'm like,
oh yeah, before they killed the store, right?
yeah, for the Wii U. I was like, are you kidding me? No.
Wow.
Oh. Yeah. But anyway, but a lot of people were like,
Nintendo, why do you do questionable things?
right? And it's like, oh, we won't release this on new consoles. Let's sign this in here before the market goes down. But
Well, you killed my hopes and dreams. I'll never play Tactics Advance.
But it actually, as far as I know, Tactics and Tactics Advance were kind of I think still kind of are ahead of their time in terms of storytelling with all the characters and still linked in a giant universe, right? Like, and it spans multiple time frames and timelines and thousands of years apart, give or take.
Yeah,
so.
Or refused to admit Revenant Wings was a thing earlier.
Well, I mean, Mont Blanc and Herdy, I think, are in the FFTA games as well, and they're also in 12, and they're also in Revenant Wings, I think.
Yeah, they are, I believe. If I remember my Revenant Wings properly, they were in there, and they also technically have cameo naming appearances in 9? Because they were referencing Tactics versus FF12, but
Could be. Speaking of those games, I'm not annoyed, but I kind of wish that with the FFTCG, FFTA, and FFTA2 kind of synergize a little bit better. But when it comes to card searches and stuff, it only says either FFTA or FFTA2.
So
Kind of wish they kind of melded together.
It includes like FFTA, but not FFT to keep it from being insanely broken.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that would just be even crazier, yeah.
Oh,
Now that we're going on about the whole category thing, and I remember category as a format, and like I was complaining about categories last week. I respect this Larsa a little more now. Like, I'm gonna say I respect the Larsa more only because of the search. And yes, that utility little pop would be good if I was playing specifically category. Okay. I'm gonna put that out there.
Though I will say that in terms of my locals, there's going to be a few Title 12 players that are like, ooh, like they'll be benefiting off all the 12 characters like no tomorrow. I was like, oh no.
Yeah, my son's a Sky Pirates player, and when he saw that spoiled, he was like, I have a home for you. Come with me.
So probably with the lore, everything else, I think we touched on most of the key points. That at least I had listed. Is there any other points that you guys might have that could be relevant to like the cards or the lore that have either been released or are spoiled now?
So I'm hearing we have free space now, right?
Yeah.
All right. Let's get down into this. Let's get into the lore. Let's get into the universe theory on the lore of Ivalice in 14 and not 14 games. So last week I said my impression of how 14 is structured is that it's a standalone world that's technically detached from most, and I say most because there were crossovers like FF15 of the FF lore / worlds. So like the Ivalice that we experience in 14 is not the same Ivalice we experience in 12, Tactics, etc. But the history behind the two are the same, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think Yoshi P way back in the day. I mean, I've been covering the game for since version 1.
Wow, you played 1.0.
Do you have the tattoo?
I do not, but you can see my.
I saw back there. I wanted to ask about that earlier.
And I even sent away for the birth certificate for my initial Final Fantasy 14 version. I have the Limsa Laminsa birth certificate for my character.
Oh my god, that's amazing.
I'm a dork. But yeah, Yoshi P has talked about way back when like we had the initial Lightning crossover event.
Yes.
And that was like one of the first events in A Realm Reborn. Yeah. And there was always that question of, okay, are you just going to be like doing a ton of Final Fantasy fan service and we're just going to be expecting to see like Sephiroth in here next month and this and this and this and this. And the team's always been generally careful, with the exception of sometimes the events have literally just been fan service. But when it comes to the things entering in the game, they're homages, but not the exacts. And Ivalice is no exception there. Crystal Tower is another one.
Yeah. But the whole thing that the discussion kind of sparked was because, again, not trying to call out, just recalling the events of the past, was again Digger was saying that it's technically Ivalice precede, or FF12 would precede 14. Not just by number, but like in the world. Because we have, again, 14 has similar lore in Ivalice to, the games. Which is why I have to like say it's kind of a separated, closed world thing, kind of like Stranger of Paradise.
Yeah.
Where they're basically saying, we based it off of this realm, universe, dimension, whatever they call it. Again, I haven't played Stranger of Paradise in a year now. Instead of saying, this is actual continuum, it's more based on. Therefore, we have the ability to differentiate and like play with the homages and stuff when needed.
Right, and that kind of goes with 14's overall, its own contained storyline with the ability to jump from world to world, star to star, source to the 1st, to the 13th, to the 12th, all of that stuff, where the characters are established as being able to, when needed and when things happen, visit alternate universes or see representations of alternate universes in their own world. Not necessarily, I'm going to Ivalice circa 100 AD.
Yeah, actually, there's actually a bit of a point that I mentioned for like Ivalice or otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
Usually, if there's characters that come in, like let's say 15 or 13, they're So there's usually for 15, if you haven't played the event, which actually I think is replayable now. That if you see like the NPC in the game, you can just do it however many times, whatever.
Wait, there's a 13 event?
Yeah, it was like the one with lightning. So.
Oh, okay. I again, I don't think I found that one yet, and I feel bad about that now.
It's basically through the quest you either get Lightning's first 13 Lightning's military outfit or Snow's jacket and all that stuff.
Oh, okay.
Which
now
the weapons you get for
later.
So what Yoshi P did and how they designed the weapons at the time was clever, but then he kind of let slip with the warrior/marauder's axe. Lightning Returns characters' weapons. Because Lightning 13-2 and 13 did not have an axe that was made of ice. Lightning Returns, Snow used an ice axe. Exact same look. I'm like, And this is before Lightning Returns the trailer had dropped, right? So like everyone's going, that doesn't make any sense. What? But so when that, I think there's like a time skip, like during the time when Lightning after 13 and went to 13-2, there was that weird little in between phase that Lightning kind of appeared in 14's world, and then whatever disappeared. And same for Noctis, when there was that time skip in 15, Noctis appeared in 14. So it kind of relates to lore and not. So I don't know how Ivalice is either a weird descendant thing or is this an alternate universe of Ivalice, as you said, Daybreak, but it's not the full same story as it was, or it's just a weird continuation of the story, but parallel universe or something like that, right?
Yeah, you also have to take into account on 14's side that when it comes to side quests and alliance raids, some of them are not considered canon, right?
Right.
If it happens in MSQ, then it's 14 canon, and if it happens in an alliance raid, it's not necessarily, doesn't mean it can't be, but it's not necessarily canon. Like here, this is from the Intricately Ivalice post from the dev blog back in April 2019 when Return to Ivalice alliance raids were coming. Okay. And that dev blog says the series started off as, quote, the story of Ivalice within the world of Final Fantasy XIV, end quote, and was said to be, quote, something completely different from Final Fantasy XII and Final Fantasy Tactics, end quote. The conclusion must have had quite an impact for many fans of Final Fantasy XII and FFT. So, like, even in the dev blog, they acknowledge we're kind of just doing the story of Ivalice in our own world, not necessarily a piece of the world in real time, and it's completely different from those two.
Any thoughts there, or Daybreak, on that one?
Not too much, only because I haven't played Final Fantasy XIV, so I don't know the full connections to it. But it's interesting because I hear on Google, actually, there was a question brought up saying, are Final Fantasy 12 and 14 connected? And the only thing it says here that the only connection between the worlds of those games is a place called the Rift, which connects all Final Fantasies. I'm just not familiar with the Rift.
That was like a really generic thing that was said many, many, many years ago in response to, I think, just the general question of if numbered Final Fantasies were all happening in the same universe or galaxy, just on different planets and different worlds.
Yeah.
Which, we're diving, I'm going to dig a little further into some other FF titles here, but that's kind of like Kingdom Hearts gray area content, so to speak, because the After Years, FF4 After Years, Stranger of Paradise, and I guess you could say 14 are some of the only titles, I guess 9, some of the only titles that actually give some sort of like reference to, 6, not 6, 5, FF5.
5
is the Rift, yes. Is the whole relation between like actually self-referencing other FF games in any way, shape, or form in the main story.
Oh.
Yeah. So FF5 has mention of the Void / the Rift, and the whole reusing some of the old elements, yada yada yada. After Years deliberately spoilers for the next few seconds in case people care about the after years. I don't. It was a tire fire of a story, if you ask me. They use the crystals as the crystals that every FF game has as like a conduit to say, hey, look, this is how they all tie together. The crystals are like some machine that this alien race uses to gather information on like life forms.
Oh, that's kind of cool. I like that.
Yeah, so through the dungeon, like one of the end dungeons in like the last chapter, you face a bunch of bosses from like other games that came before or after 4. You'll see like Merilith or Kraken, and you'll see, etc., etc. Right, and then again, Stranger of Paradise takes a revisit to that kind of thing as well, where they copy domains, which is based on each actual FF game, and then the crystals are a thing that the spoilers again, if you care. The crystals are things that the Lufenians use to like absorb darkness and do like a power engine kind of thing, which I feel like is a relation to also referencing After Years' kind of story plot as well. But spoilers over.
So yeah, I would say that in terms of for the Evilise part of it,
Well, Final Fantasy XIV's Evilise, by the way, screws up the timeline for its own purposes. Like in the Evilise timeline, Final Fantasy 12 happens before Tactics.
Yeah.
In some of the narrative stuff in Final Fantasy 14, Tactics predates 12. So they even mess with the timeline in 14. It's they've always kind of viewed it as it's unrelated to the Evilise of other titles, but there are similarities as far as regions, the War of the Lions, like some of the historical stuff, but they play with the timeline. The Evilise in Final Fantasy 14 has Tactics ahead of 12, but in the Evilise timeline, that's actually the other way around.
Actually, doesn't TA kind of do kind of similar thing, but it's not. I guess. I mean, it's the beginning of, even like the beginning little Game Boy Advance cinematic of Tactics Advance. You're basically playing as people from the real world that get sucked into a book that's basically Final Fantasy / Final Fantasy Tactics. So it's kind of, I would think it's kind of the same thing, but kind of playing off.
So the Advanced series is more of a guidance / side story thing. That's like, again, it's based on the lore of the book, which would be, I guess, the story of FFTA or FFT. Sorry, pardon that. So it's not like it doesn't have any actual impact on the story of Evilise itself.
Yeah, but I'm just trying to
think because it's just like what it's like the 100-acre wood.
That's a good point, actually.
That's actually a great analogy for what's going on there with Mute and all that stuff.
Also, Meepo, I'm going to reach through the internet, grab you by the shoulders, and shake you and tell you need to play FF14 sometime.
I don't have time. I have such a huge backlog of video games. I don't think I could throw an MMO into it.
Okay, in case you're curious, and again, this doesn't cover everything, but there is Chronicler of Lore and other YouTube channels who will go over the story content that we'll discuss related to FF14.
Yeah.
In case you're ever curious.
Well, I might someday, and this kind of reflects another reason why I love this card game so much, is that since playing this card game, I played a lot of Final Fantasy, but there's a lot I haven't played. And I gotta say that since playing this card game, I'm like, the characters in Final Fantasy 14 have really grabbed my interest. Like Y'shtola and all those kind of characters, Estinian and all that kind of stuff.
I just want to know, if we're talking about Evilise, when the hell I'm getting a Vagrant Story card. That's.
I was just about to say
that's
that.
all
I was
want.
about to say that Vagrant Story also takes place in Evilise. You're totally right.
Yeah, my son just finished that game about a month ago on his stream. He runs a stream on my channel that's games older than me, so he only plays things that came out before he was born. And so I was like, you got to try a Vagrant Story if you want something a little off kilter and older than you. And he absolutely loved that game. I was
that
like,
game is really good, but I'm struggling with the combat system and how.
Oh yeah.
But I do love that game.
I guess. Actually, speaking of how you change some of the Evilise different from the original, I think if I heard correctly, he asked the original creator of the original Evilise story about, because the male Vera originally were that like a what's the term, Amazonian tribe, like where the females were able to go outside the village, do what they need to, come back. The male Vera would stay in the village and do the work within the village. They would not leave. So when, if I remember correctly, Yoshi P asked the creator, going, "Hey, can I change this up, whatnot?" And he's like, "Sure." So the male Vera now leave the village, not often, but when they do, they leave and do their own thing, as well as the females.
Yes, that happened.
So it's kind of a little interesting. If I'm not mistaken, the male Vera in 14 look a little bit different than the male Vera are supposed to look in 12 and Tactics original lore. I could be wrong, but this is from what I heard, right?
I haven't seen male Vera in either source content. To my knowledge at the moment.
You haven't seen the male Vera?
I haven't seen. Yeah, I correct me if I'm wrong, but in my playthrough of FF12 currently, I've only seen female Vera, no males. I was under the impression that they were literally unicorns and are only seen at a very specific time by said characters off screen. And I'm now under the impression that this lore modification was made for the lore in the world of 14.
Yes.
Okay, that's cool. That's to clarify for me. I will save that for the next talking point if we come to a wall with this Viera conversation.
So
that's all I got. Male Vera, that's where it's at.
Yeah, male Viera.
So I'm trying to look up the original concept art of the male Vera from original Final Fantasy 12.
Do they appear in 12? Maybe I'm not at like a side quest where I see any male Viera in 12.
I would think there's like concept art, but he just never used it, right?
Okay, I see. That might be why. I had one other thing that I wanted to bring up while we're on the topic of FF.
Yep.
14 and the whole evil list thing, and again, please someone correct me if I'm wrong or horribly misplaced, but we had the appearance of Numo and Viera in Shadowbringers.
Oh yeah, the one race that was basically I guess the first appearance will have been FFTCG, right, where those races kind of first popped up, right?
Yes. Yeah. I believe Viera and Numo were TA based, so it kind of sparks a bit of discussion for me on that point. It was basically, hey, why, between here and there.
Actually, that's actually a decent point, because you never really see the Viera, you don't really see the Bagan or anything. We
don't see Seek either.
In Tactics or whatnot, but we see them in Tactics Advance and 12. So what happened between 12 and Tactics, right? Like, did those races just go extinct, or did they just go into hiding? Like, it's kind of interesting.
Well, I'm looking at a little bit of stuff here and there on Google, and like one of them said, I don't know if it's pertaining to 12 or 14, but they say the male Vieras come back to the village every 3 to 5 years to mate, and then they all go back into the forest again and bring the adolescent males with them.
Unicorns. Literally, just freaking unicorns, you show up like penguins almost.
To be fair as well, the Mikute are kind of the same thing, except one tribe's what's the terminology for?
Where did Mikote come from? Which Final Fantasy canonized cat girls?
Well, they were Mithra in Final Fantasy 11.
Thank you. Oh
yeah.
My God, I wouldn't be able to sleep if I couldn't remember that.
And it was the same thing. They were female only, and the Galka were male only.
So there's actually a Final Fantasy Union or whatever does touch on the backstory of whatever Mikute, but they're based for references purposes to the Viera of Evilise. They're kind of the same thing, but were the Seekers of the whatever night and the sun and the moon. I think moon's I think more prominent to one male being the leader, and there is another male to be the leader, they have to challenge or whatever, and once more the female as the leader, but it's kind of the same concept but slightly deviated. So I guess similarities, I guess they kind of derived the Makute / Mithra a little bit based off the Tactics Vieira, I would think. Just because
I can see that. I could see that reusing past lore and just retooling the character image. Yeah, that's kind of along the lines of like FF9 homage stuff going on, which is really cool.
Yeah.
That's like the difference between a potato and Shantoto. For those of you who don't understand what I just said, FF14, we have a race of small peoples
That's
called Lalafell. And they were a re-adaptation of, I guess, race that Shantoto character was in FF11.
Which is interesting because then 14 also has a huge connection to 11, but that's beside the point. But
again, 14 is in its own universe where they're kind of like homaging and referencing things as best they can within its own pocket dimension.
Yeah, though.
Or one of 14 pocket dimensions.
To be fair, though, if based off what you said about Shantoto,
yeah,
never cross paths with her if she sees interest in you as a test subject. Pray to God you survive long enough where she goes, "You can go home now."
Yeah, it's time to go. It's time to go.
It's like, okay, did I survive? Am I still alive? Am I in one piece? Cool, you can go home. Yes, bye. She is one of the scariest black mages. Actually, even scarier than even some of the black mages from 12 or whatnot.
She's not a black mage, though, is she?
I think she
is.
Mage,
isn't she?
I don't think her original job is that, but she's basically an overpowered black mage that goes, by the way, I'm just going to cast this thing out of science, but that's going to kill that entire village. I'll write that down in the report.
Damn.
Oh yeah, no, if it furthers her own goals of researching something, she'll do it. She doesn't care. She's also pompous, but that's her own thing. But yeah, I guess that's kind of it for the Eagles part of it. Unless there's anything else that we missed, but I don't think there is actually.
Is anyone super familiar with Dissidia beyond the Duodecim era?
No, I am not me.
Dissidia?
Okay, because I just realized I missed a game earlier when I was talking about ones that did actual cross-world lore and like reaching, and Dissidia is actually one of the titles that does so. Just in the state that, you know, stages are recreations of specific iconic areas from like each game, and you know, you have the whole main character crossover.
Yeah.
But I was
sorry.
Ramza was a character added in DX, the arcade release, I think. And I was wondering if there was anything Evilus related in there, aside from just having the character show up.
I think in well, Opera Omnia has its own little storyline, but in Dissidia NT, there is the first church is a battle stage, like from Tactics, and Ramza is in there. I think.
Okay.
Still added? I don't think so. But actually, that kind of brings me back to why Dissidia is not a title deck. Actually, now that I think about it,
it's not allowed to be a title deck. So it'd be too good? Question mark?
Question mark?
Yeah, it's a question. It's a legitimate question.
Oh, it's legit. I think based off what I'm just figuring out, due to lore, because there's so many cards that have Dissidia, Final Fantasy, and Final Fantasy 7 or whatnot, or Final Fantasy Tactics or otherwise.
Yeah, DFF.
They can be mashed together, like all like OP cards mashed together into a deck, and go. No. No.
Not a lot of them are. Let me look at like category DFF, but I don't think any of them are like by today's standards super insane, are they?
I want to say today, but if you were to do like mannequins with title with all their stuff, then oh boy.
Mannequins aren't even DFF, are they?
They are
not. So
Oh wow, the new Fury from Opus 18 is DFF as well.
yeah, so like I don't maybe I'll look at
The
something.
mannequins are originally from Dissidia, so they work with all that stuff. But yeah,
So mannequins, yes. Okay, no, there's 273 Dissidia Final Fantasy cards. Never mind. I did not see the thing.
You're totally right, there is. Oh wow.
Yup,
that's why they kind of. That's what I'm
Okay,
thinking.
fair.
They
Fair.
kind of overpowered that title for the format. So like, no.
That would be great. That would be great if I could build a Dissidia deck.
But other than that, I think we've touched on almost everything for the EVE, unless we really want to dig deep into everything else. But in terms of the cards, I think we touched on everything so far that I believe, unless we missed anything.
I'm feeling good.
I think we covered a fair chunk of it. I think we did a good job of that, yeah.
Okay.
I'm content.
So, I guess at this point we could probably end here. I'll say, I'll ask what type of other format, not formats, but it's where I could talk.
Discussions?
What other titles do you think we should probably cover for next week?
I think we should wait to see what spoilers we get over the next week.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
I like
ahead,
I
go
like
ahead.
the idea of like, hey, we got 2 to 4 spoilers in a particular category that we haven't looked at yet. Let's look at it.
That's actually a fair point. Okay, so we'll probably wait till after you revealed their.
But you already know my category, so we'll have to see if there's any other 13 categories in the next week.
That would be nice. So if there's more than one like 13 card, then hey, we'll do 13 at that point. So
Yeah.
If we're gonna talk about 13 lore, I think I'm gonna be sick next week. I won't be able to make the podcast. I'm so sorry.
I'm just gonna be
I'll be-
sick. It's like, oh, I'm sick here.
I'm like,
I can't
oh, remember I
Down to
told
the
you last
13.
Wednesday I was gonna be sick today. I couldn't make it.
But yeah, so we'll probably end it there. I mean, that's thank you for coming out actually and joining us actually there, Magic Man and whatnot.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for the invite. That was very kind of you.
I have a question.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Magic Man, do you have your own YouTube channel?
I do. So
Yes. Would you like to give us? Would you like to give us your plug?
everything is, if you just go to ReadyCheckRaideo.com,
Awesome.
that'll have all the socials, Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, where the podcasts are. Ready Check Radio it's spelled RAIDEO, very MMO-ish, but I own both URLs, so if you spell it the right way, you'll get there too. It's fine.
Okay.
I'm not gonna lie, when I jumped in on this podcast and I saw your face on the screen, I'm like, oh my god, I'm getting hyped. I get to do a podcast with this.
So we do the.
I love your content, dude.
Oh, thank you. We do the Final Fantasy 14 / Square Enix podcast every Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern, live. And then we also do a general gaming podcast every Saturday then we have Final Fantasy TCG live locals every Monday, and then a bunch of other streamers that stream on the channel throughout the week too. So check it all out, follow it, notifications, all that fun stuff. It's greatly appreciated.
Yeah, I'll also be adding all the links and plugins for Ready Check Radio in the description after this is all fully uploaded on YouTube. So if you look at the description, then it'll all be there.
Yep.
So
Make it nice and easy.
pretty much. So once again, thank you, Magic Man, for coming out, and thanks Meepo and Daybreak for also joining as well.
Thanks for having us.
You're
We
welcome.
appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
So with that, I'll say we'll end it there.